Hey guys, how's it going? So today what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about a few coyote hunting tips. Not very much, just a few basic things, but these are all things that anyone can really use just to actually have some success and maybe call in some coyotes. So the first thing that I'm going to talk about is when to hunt. I personally, living in Iowa, northeast Iowa, we get snow on the ground in the wintertime, and that's usually our best time, like the end of December through early March or late February. So that's kind of the time frame that we like to hunt, and we do most of our hunting at night. Now the reason that we haven't really came out with a good video is because it's hard to record obviously at night when it's dark out, because it's going to look like this. Alright, so obviously you can see there's no way that we can actually get a hunt on film when it's that dark out. That was actually one of the brightest nights we had this year, and you still can't see anything. So that's the biggest reason that we can't get really any good footage. We've tried hunting, get some good footage during the day, but it seems like every time we call one in during the day, we don't have the cameras rolling. But if you can have a good night with not a lot of wind and some good visibility when that moon comes up, then that's going to be your best shot to call on coyotes. That's when they feel the safest to come out of the woods. Now that we've talked about when to hunt, we're going to go over where to hunt. So basically anywhere that there could be a coyote living, you could call one in. We've called coyotes in spots that we never thought they would ever come in, even 100 yards away from a house. So don't be afraid to try spots that you feel like they won't even work, because you'd be surprised if there's coyotes in the area, they could be sitting anywhere. So spots that we like to look for are more like isolated woods out in the middle of nowhere, because that's obviously going to be where that coyote is probably going to be sitting. So when we find a woods that we want to hunt, we're going to kind of drive around the block and just look it over and find a spot that we could set up that's going to be like a vantage point that's out away from that woods. Because you want to have the coyotes come running into that call. You don't want to go find them and take a risk of spooking them. You want to stay away from them. They will come into you. So when you set up on them now, you're going to, like I said, you're going to want to stay back away from the woods and just find a fence line or some type of cover to get you out of the open. And you're going to want to set your call out back away from where that woods is. That way the coyotes can come run out of the woods to the call, and they'll have to run out in front of you before they get to that call. If you're calling something else, say it's pretty much the opposite. It's a field like down on the bottom of a valley and it's all surrounded by woods. In that situation, you maybe want to put the call out right in front of you. That way if they come from behind you or from the sides, then either way they're going to have to run out in front of you first. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my calls that I got here. This is actually my first coyote call right here. It's a Foxborough Spitfire, and it came with right around 40 sounds. So it wasn't too bad. They're obviously not all coyotes, but it's just something basic. It's like $100 at Cabela's. So if you're just starting, it's really a good call to get. And then what I'm using now is the Shockwave. And this thing has 2 speakers on it, and they rotate. That way you can call in different areas. And then the remote, it looks pretty complicated, but it's actually pretty simple once you get it figured out. It's really easy to use. And this one comes with over 100 sounds. So all you got to do is buy the thing and put batteries in it. It's ready to go. It's going to have almost any sound that you would ever need. So those are the calls that I've used in the past. Both of them work good. You can also get a whole bunch of different calls from anywhere in between. Alright, so we're set up on these coyotes. We've thought about it, looked it all over, and we've got a good spot, good setup, and we're ready to call them in. Now, all year long, what I always like to do is kind of have the same pattern. I start out with a howl, and then I go to something like a rabbit in distress or some kind of like prey in distress, and then I'm going to go back to another kind of howl, or maybe switch up the distress a little bit, and then kind of just take a break in between each sound for a few minutes. And then at the very end, usually around the 20 to 25 minute mark, if nothing has come in, you're going to play the coyote pup in distress. So we've called coyotes in each stage here, but a majority of them come in within the first 5 minutes and then after 20 minutes. Alright, so let's talk about the howl that we're going to start out with. We start out with a howl. You can start out with a male howl or a female howl. No matter what time of year it is, you can call the coyotes in with either one. But after we do that howl for a couple minutes, we're just going to take a break, and you're going to let that rabbit distress go. You can try eastern cottontail. There's like adult cottontails, lightning jack, anything like that. Even if it's not native to your area, you can try it out and let that play for a little bit. So then in December or January, when they're not yet mating, you could use more rabbit distress or more prey calls, because they're going to be looking for food more than other coyotes. So if they don't respond to that call right away, then your rabbit distress is probably going to be what they're going to come into after that. So after you do that for a little bit, you're going to want to wait until right around that 10-minute mark, and then that's when you're going to try something else, maybe another howl or another different type of rabbit distress. So after you do that for another few minutes, you're going to wait again and maybe try another sound here, something subtle like a real quiet, like vole squeaks or a bird or just something like that. If something's close or something's coming in, it'll just keep them coming. Now, if none of that has worked and you get to 20 to 25 minutes and nothing's coming in, you don't see anything, that's when you're going to do your coyote distress. Now, on this call, I have one of the coyote pup and distress calls, and then I also have coyote pup screams. I've called coyotes in with both of them. They both work, but I always end on one of them because it's just one of those sounds that will trigger them. Because if you play one of these sounds and you have a dog nearby, that dog's going to go nuts. And a coyote it's the same way. It just really can't resist it. So it hears that, it's going to come running in just by its instincts. So that's kind of the sequence that I follow all year. And like I said, earlier in the year, you're going to want to go more towards the prey, and then later on is when you want to use more vocalizations when they're mating and stuff like that. Alright, we went over when we're going to hunt, where we're going to hunt, and how we're going to hunt it. After we went over those three things, you guys should all have a basic knowledge of how to call coyotes in. Obviously, there's a lot more things. I could sit here and talk about this for hours, but these are just some of the basics. If you just take what I taught you today, you could easily go out there and call in a coyote at any time. So you got to have some confidence and keep trying. If you don't call something in after a while, you just can't give up, because it'll happen eventually. But keep checking up on my channel for more videos, and thank you for watching.